And they said it couldn't be done. I'm just kidding. They didn't really say that. This is Training Insights, episode 25. Hi, and welcome to Training Insights. This is episode 25, which is something of a milestone. Also a milestone, this is part 3 of our 3-part series with Phil Geldart from Eagles Flight near Guelph, Ontario. Today, I'll keep the intro fairly short because you know Phil quite well by now. We're going to talk about cultural transformation, how to get it started and how to see it through. So, here we go. Let's go off to Guelph one more time and talk with Phil Geldart.
And one more time, this is Training Insights with Phil Geldart and Kevin McGowan. That's me and your Phil. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Kevin. Nice to chat again.
It's great, and this is our big wrap-up of the great learning trilogy
Okay.
we've embarked on this time.
I feel like we're watching Lord of the Rings here.
Yeah.
Everything comes to the conclusion and all live happily ever after.
Yeah, if you want to watch the director's cut of this, you can go to my 16 hours of Phil and Kevin talking about training development. So what we have talked about in the last couple times is the HR cycle and unleashing that or unlocking that inner potential within people in the organization. And last time, you did a really great job talking about the HR cycle, everything from recruitment right through to future planning, succession planning, and we were kind of joking at the end that why isn't this, why doesn't everybody just do this? And why is this not by rote at this point in our corporate lives that this is, but it just doesn't happen. So that's a nice jumping point to talk about culture transformation, which I know is another thing that you specialize in at Eagles Flight.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start with the question. We'll come back to maybe the HR cycle a little bit, but tell me why somebody would want to change their culture. I can imagine it. I can imagine disaster stories, but maybe something a little more nuanced. Why do we need a cultural shift, or why would somebody come to you looking for help on changing their culture?
Yep. It's a great question. I can tell you, Kevin, that in the last few years, the concept of culture within companies has become far, far more an area of focus. Senior executives are looking at that at a level of intensity that was never seen before. There's a tremendous amount of our folks that we work with are paying attention to culture. So it's a very timely question. And I think just to put it in context, most companies are not saying we need a culture transformation, although they use those words. What they really mean is a portion of our culture needs a transformation. Generally speaking, we have a really good culture. We're happy with this and we're happy with that. But there is an area that is now causing us concern. So for example, a company might say, we just have got to become more customer centric. We need a culture of customer centricity. So let's transform that way. But what they are not saying is, well, our culture, which also includes a high respect for the individual and a focus on diversity and a focus on inclusion, we're throwing all that out the window and just going to customer centricity. So there are often portions of the culture that are highly valued and they don't want to mess with that. Mm-hmm. They want to mess with fix a smaller segment. So that is probably 80% of what companies mean when they mean culture transformation. So the first step is, okay, let's just be clear. When you say culture transformation, what aspect of your culture do you want transformed? So we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. The 20% are literally saying, no, our whole culture is lacking something and we have to transform. So we chatted with a client recently and they were saying, well, we have moved from sort of survival mode to growth mode. Mm-hmm. So everybody is worrying about counting the pencils and how can we just survive? And we have this culture of conserving and shrinking in on ourselves and just trying to get through tomorrow. And now we need to grow. And how in the world do we get everybody's mind shifted? So in that case, it is truly a corporate-wide culture transformation. But that's not sort of the norm. The norm is pick an area. And right. The current things that people are really paying attention to, customer centricity is a big one. In the manufacturing area, safety, obviously, how do we continue to keep focused on safety? Empowerment is a huge topic nowadays in terms of how do we harness the capabilities and the potential of our workforce. Accountability is a big issue.
Mhm.
Sales, moving from sort of farmers to hunters. So those are kind of the topics that we certainly are bumping into. And I think the organization is saying, now how do I transform? And that then leads, long answer to your question, to answer
Right.
your question. So
Right. Right.
let me,
Uh,
but I think that's important because otherwise people get the wrong idea and they don't realize that you're really narrowing the focus of it.
Well, no, I find it really, really helpful because I've been in those situations for like the 20% situation, for example, where you're a little startup.
Yeah.
And, you're not even buying those pencils because there is no money. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're now
Exactly.
getting more successful and things are going well. But how do we adapt and how do we scale what we've done, which generally probably can't be scaled, but how do we shift and change how we operate?
Yep.
But the 80%, I mean, especially we were talking to over these few episodes in terms of character and integrity and things like that. This is, I'm imagining, and I don't want to get too political about it, but it's part of our culture as well. Like, the Me Too movement is huge in terms of gender equality and things like that.
Yeah.
Is this something that we can broach in a corporate setting, and is this something that comes up in corporations? Is this something they want to change in their culture in terms of equal opportunity for everyone in their workforce?
Yeah. I honestly cannot speak knowledgeably about that.
Yeah,
I have a point of view, obviously, 'cause I run a
sure, of course.
but I can't give you experience that Eagles Flight has had where organizations have come to us and said, help us with that issue. So I think it would be inappropriate for me to try to
Oh, sure.
prescribe there. I can tell you that my answer to that, if someone were to come and talk to me, I would say that is less about what I would consider culture transformation and more about equipping your leaders to lead in a way that is appropriate. So I would put that challenge in the leadership development bucket. And I say that for two reasons. Firstly, there are right behaviors that need to be demonstrated. So I would teach those behaviors. And secondly, the body follows the head. So you can't kind of have your body go one way and your head go another. So if
Well
you
said,
want
yeah.
an organization to be paying attention to those issues and things like equality in the work, then you're going to start and say, okay, so how does my leader behave? And I will model on that behavior, which then brings me back to, okay, so I need to equip the leader to behave properly. So I think that particular issue is less of, now people might disagree with me, say, no, Phil, that's cultural. But I would say, well, that's kind of more, how do your leaders behave? And they better behave the right way so that they're giving off the right example, and then people will follow. And so as opposed to, if you think on the other side of customer centricity, in that case, most organizations are driven by metrics and their performances and their policies and their procedures that are designed to make the organization efficient. And they now want to move to make those very same policies and procedures and so on something that will better serve their customer. Right. So the guy on the front line or the gal dealing with the customer, I mean, she knows what the customer wants, but she's got an entire organization behind her that really doesn't care.
Right.
So that's more of the kind of cultural transformation I think that we certainly get involved with than the former.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's so much in terms of cultural transformation, just culturally right now. It's just
yeah, exactly.
There's a shifting point happening right now. So I'm wondering if that was opening up in terms of how leadership is approached, for example. And you've spoken to that.
Yeah.
It does all come from the leaders, I guess, in terms of a cultural transformation, the 80% version where you need to pick something. Maybe that one thing isn't quite working.
Exactly.
How oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because you were about to say, so how do you tackle that, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's like we're scripted, but we're not, people. We're not scripted.
I think there's 3 or 4 principles which are vital. And if those principles are understood, it's then in the execution of them. So the first one, I would say, is a recognition that this is probably a 3-year journey.
Okay.
So one of our
So
biggest
realistic
challenges is to try to help folks realize this. The kiss of death is be labeled as the flavor of the month.
Yeah.
You can't just go out and say, okay, we're going to change our culture. Okay, here's the posters, and all right, we're all going to do this, and here's the memo, and watch my video, and it's not. And
Sorry, I hate to laugh, but I've seen that so many times. I mean,
I know. And the other thing that happens is, especially if you get it right initially, and you begin to see traction at the end of the first year, senior managers are tempted to say, well, we seem to have this in hand now. Let's just delegate it. And so the whole thing gets delegated down a level, who of course then delegate it down a level, and it fizzles because they're sort of victims of their own success. So when we walk into a company, we say, just so you're clear, it will take 3 years for the new behaviors to be part of your DNA. And to guarantee that level of impact, we need the senior management to be as involved for the 3 years as they were in the first year. So that's kind of the very first thing I think you need to understand.
well, that's good expectation setting.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yep.
have to, if we're in this for the long haul. It's like any other,
Yes,
relationship
exactly.
or anything else,
You
right?
gotta get
We're committed.
Exactly. I think the next thing is almost metaphorically and sometimes practically walking into the CFO's office and saying to her, okay, how are you going to measure the benefit? Why are you doing this? A culture transformation is very expensive. It's expensive because everything, you got a lot of people and their time and they're away from their jobs, but you've got to train them and so on. So why are you doing this? Because ultimately the CEO and by proxy the CFO have to report to the shareholders that there has been an increase in, fill in the blank, whatever it is that that organization is committed to, whether it's, profit or, if it's a sort of a nonprofit organization, they're worried about care folks, whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah.
But wherever that organization exists, this culture transformation had better make it better. So then we begin by saying, now that we're clear it's 3 years, the second question is, how are we going to measure success? And I think that is a very important thing, and I'm going to come to that in a minute. But
Sure.
and the measure of success is not necessarily financial. So for example, an organization may say, we want a culture of innovation, and we will measure it by the number of innovations that actually make it to market, which is a different metric than we made more money. Because
Right.
you see, so, and sometimes you may want something like, we want people to be more engaged, and the metric or the measure of success is your turnover drops, your employee engagement scores go up, people start telling their friends about what a great company this is to work for, your productivity goes up. So there are a number of metrics that are reflective of the one thing, which is we want the engagement scores to go up. So you really have to know what it is that the culture transformation is supposed to produce, whatever it is, whether it's sort of subjective or objective, which leads me to my third point, and that is no transformation can happen without the role of the line manager. So if I'm Fred and I work for Betty in Poughkeepsie, I have no idea who the CEO is. I probably can't even spell their name because my boss is Betty.
Right.
And I walk in every morning and she reflects the company to me. So if you want my behavior to change, if you want me to adapt in some fashion, then I'm going to be looking to Betty. So that then means that to make a culture transformation, you have to go through the line manager, right down to the foreman on the warehouse floor. And they are very driven. All line managers are driven by results. That's kind of the whole point of line management.
Right.
So they need to know, back to my second point.
Oh, you dropped there. You're still there?
Hi, am I here?
Yeah, you're there. Am I here?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
You're just saying, and back to my second point. So
yeah,
sir.
Sorry. Back to my second point. Those line managers, which are very results driven by virtue of their job, they want to know, okay, so what is the benefit of this culture transformation? Why am I being asked to behave differently? How will the organization and my job improve or add greater value because of this? So your second point, which is why are we doing this, has to be really clear, because now your third point, I'm going to the line managers and saying, here's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And they better say, yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
If not, they're going to go, yes, this is really good until you leave the room. And then they're going to go, that guy's an idiot. So you want them to own it versus just execute it.
Well, so sometimes it is, and there's a whole change management process there, right? So how do you differentiate kind of the top-down, look, we're changing our culture in these ways for these reasons, and getting the people kind of committed to that grassroots level and recognizing that corporate-wide, whatever the corporation is, this is going to benefit everybody, but it's also going to benefit you individually. How do you kind of bridge that gap?
Because certainly in my judgment, if we are going to do a culture transformation in a company, I need to train every employee and I need to train every leader, which is why it's so expensive. Because they have current behaviors and I need different behaviors. Now, back to my earlier point, I don't need all the behaviors to change. I just need some.
Right.
So I have to train them. And then I have to train the line manager so that they can reinforce the behaviors I taught to the employee. But you see now I have the employees in front of me, because this is typically, we tend to do this in a class because I don't think e-learning is effective at changing behavior particularly. But so I have the employees in a class and I have the leaders in a class. So that gives me the opportunity to address those questions that you asked. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here's how your behavior will change. Here's the skills that you need that you don't have now. Here's what you can expect from your leader and for the leaders. Here's how you coach them. Here's how you help them. So once I can get face-to-face with these folks and I can bring in some experiential learning tools and some videos from senior executives, I can begin to shape how they think about their job, how they think about the culture, why we're doing it, why we're making the change, and then practically, which is where the real value is, what do you want me to do differently? Because most organizations go, yes, well, we need a culture transformation. We'd like everybody to be more engaged. Okay, have a good day. Okay, but what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
What do I do differently? And if I'm a leader, that's terrifying. You want to engage with, does that mean that I don't make the decisions? And who, so they just say, okay, well, I hope this all goes away because I'm busy. So you need that sort of the discipline. Culture transformation is a very disciplined, rigorous process behind the scenes. Up front, it looks kind of magical and fun and wow, look at what's happening. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of steps that you need.
Well, and we talked too earlier about, that the dreaded flavor of the month thing, right? Hang up the posters and everybody's smiling and, hey, we love everybody or whatever it is. You might, having seen that maybe a few times in an organization.
Oh yeah, sure.
When the real ship shows up and you're all climbing on board onto this big, change management, cultural transformation thing, you're going to be like, well, we tried. So that's part of the challenge, I guess, is to have everybody commit. And that's what you're saying in terms of getting everybody's in the room learning this thing.
Yeah, and
to show that everybody really is committed to it.
Exactly, Kevin. And honestly, I think most folks that try and fail, they didn't fail because they lack the will. They just don't know how to do it. They make bicycles for a living. I mean, they're the world's best bicycle maker. But we don't know how to change our culture. That's not what we do. So you need someone to come, I think, beside you that says, okay, this is what I do. I don't know how to put a bicycle chain on to save my life, but I can tell you how to change behavior. Put the two of you together and you probably get the outcome. So these folks need the how as much as the what. They bring the what, but you need someone to come and help you with the how.
Bill, that's a fantastic place to leave it.
All right.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure doing these few conversations with you.
Thank you. It's been fun, and we got Aragorn to the kingdom, so all is good.
Nice. I like it. One more Lord of the Rings reference.
Exactly.
Okay,
Okay.
so take it easy.
Thanks very much. Okay, Kevin. Bye now.
And there you have it. Thanks so much, Phil, for taking the time to speak to me a few times over the last few weeks. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the listeners do too. If you want more information on Phil and Eagles Flight, go to eaglesflight.com. If you want information on me, you can check me out too. I'm at kevinmcgowan.ca. And of course, you can check out Training Magazine at any time, all the time at trainingmag.com. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.